This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay. All right, Rabbi Sai, welcome. This is our final shiur before Yom Tov of Shavuos. Really very interesting information tonight. Just while everybody settle down, I know it's a very exciting evening. Okay, we look at Parsha Shavuos. And in Parsha Shavuos, Paro gave a decree that the midwives need to check that when the Jewish women give birth, if they give birth to a male, the midwives are commanded to basically make sure that these little babies do not survive the pregnancy, do not survive the childbirth, and they were commanded basically to kill the children. So, of course, we know that the Jewish midwives were none other than Shifra and Pua, Yocheved and Miriam, and the Pasuk tells us like this. It was that the midwives feared God, and God made for them houses. God made for them houses. What does this mean that He made for them houses? Says Rashi, He made for them Bate Kahuna, houses of Kahuna, Ulevia and Levia, Umalchus. In other words, Shifra and Pua, Yocheved and Miriam were rewarded that all the great institutions would come from them. The institution of Kahuna, the institution of Levia, and the institution of Malchus. Kahuna and Levia, of course, came from Yocheved. Yocheved was the mother of Miriam, and you need the dazzle, you need the white thing. You need Yocheved and was the mother of Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen, and of course Miriam was the progenitor we're going to see of Malchus. Rashi says like this: "Well, Malchus be Miriam. Malchus came from Miriam." So we have a fantastic reward that these two women, they didn't know that what they were doing would necessarily be remembered for all time. And amazingly, what happened was God rewarded them. Kahuna and Levia came from Yocheved, and Malchus came from Miriam. You need the white piece. It's in the.
It works. It works.
Works?
Yeah.
It's working. Okay. So that's the story. The Gemara Masechta Soita tells us the same thing. Look at number 3. Gemara Soita Daf Yal from the base. Vayihi kiyiru hamiyaldo sesalekim. Vayasalhem batim. Ravu Shmuel. Chad Omar bate Kahuna uLevia. One says they were rewarded with Kahuna and Levia. The Chad Omar bate Malchus. One says Malchus. Mando Omar bate Kahuna Levia. Aaron Moshe came from Yocheved. Umanda Omar bate Malchus David Narmi Miriam Kasi. Now the Gemara tells us an amazing historical fact that David HaMelech, who of course we know came from Shevet Yehuda, was actually a descendant of Miriam. Miriam, the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu. How? So the Gemara quotes the pasuk. D'chsiv, Batamas Azuva. Azuva died. Who's Azuva? The wife of Kalev. Vayikach loy Kalev es Ephras. Kalev married Ephras. Bateled loy es Chur. And she gave birth to Chur. So Kalev comes and takes Ephras. Now who in the world is Ephras? Who's Ephras? So the Gemara continues. Uchsiv. David ben Ish, Ephrasi. David was the son of a descendant of Ephrasi. So Kalev took Ephras. Ephras is being identified as Miriam, and David came from Ephrasi from Miriam. Says the Gemara, David HaMelech was amazingly a descendant of Miriam. There's a big problem here. How in the world could you say that David HaMelech was a descendant of Miriam? David was a descendant of Miriam? How is that? Well, the Gemara is saying that who married Miriam? Kalev ben Yefuna married Miriam. So, how could you say David HaMelech came from Kalev? Kalev ben Yefuna? If you want to know the lineage of David HaMelech, you have to look where? At the end of Sefer Ruth. So the last few psukim in Sefer Ruth give us the lineage of David HaMelech, tracing him back all the way to Yehuda. So look at the last psukim of Ruth. You have, look at number 4. V'ela Toldois Paretz. These are the children of Paretz. Paretz, of course, was the son of Yehuda. Paretz, Hoylid, es Chetzroin. Paretz gave birth to Chetzroin. V'Chetzroin, Hoylid, es Ram. V'Ram, Hoylid, es Aminadav. V'Aminadav, Hoylid, es Nachshoin. V'Nachshoin, Hoylid, es Salma. The Salmoin holiest as Boaz, Boaz holiest as Oived, Oived holiest as Yishai. By the way, it's an amazing thing. We know Nachshon ben Aminadav. He's the first one to jump in the Yamsuf. His son is Salmoin. Salmoin's son is Boaz. Can you imagine? Boaz was the grandson of somebody who went through the Yamsuf. Even though the story of Ruth happened hundreds of years after Kriyas Yamsuf. And nevertheless, Boaz, who may have been, according to Chazal, 300 years old at the time, he was a grandson of Nachshon ben Aminadav. But Rabbi said, here's the problem. The problem is, how could the Gemara say that David HaMelech came from Kalev ben Yefuneh and Miriam? Here you have the entire lineage of David HaMelech. Does anybody see Kalev's name over here? You have David, who is the son of Yishai, who is the son of Oived, who is the son of Boaz, who is the son of Salmon, who is the son of Nachshon, who is the son of Aminadav, who is the son of Ram, Chetzron, Peretz, Yehuda. No mention of Kalev ben Yefuneh. So how in the world does the Gemara say that David HaMelech came from Kalev ben Yefuneh? He's not on the list. He's not on the list. Now let's clarify something. Who was Kalev's father? Anybody know who's Kalev's father? Kalev ben Yefuneh. That wasn't his name. There's no name in all of Tanakh Yefuneh. His name was Chetzron. The Navi says, the Gemara even asked him, the Gemara asked, look at number 3. The Gemara asked, Ben Chetzron, Ben Yefuneh who? Why do we call him Kalev ben Chetzron? He's Kalev ben Yefuneh. The Gemara says, no, his father's name was Chetzron. The reason why he's called Kalev ben Yefuneh is Kalev averted being part of the Meraglim. That's why he's called Kalev ben Yefuneh, because he averted being part of the Atzas HaMeraglim. So here we have it. Kalev was the son of Chetzron. And if you look at the lineage, you take a look at the lineage of David HaMelech at the end of Sefer Ruth. So David was the son of Yishai. Yishai was the son of Oived. Oived is the son of Boaz. Boaz is the son of Salmon. Salmon ben Nachshon. Nachshon ben Aminadav. Aminadav ben Ram. Ram ben Chetzron. So the Navi says that Chetzron gave birth to Ram, who gave birth to Aminadav. And yet the Gemara in Soita says David HaMelech came from Kalev, and we know Kalev was the son of Chetzron. So how could you say David came from Kalev? He didn't come from Kalev. He came from Ram. The Pasuk says openly that Kalev was a descendant of Ram ben Chetzron. How could we say that David was a descendant of Ram ben Chetzron? How could we say he was a descendant of Kalev ben Chetzron? So maybe you'll say that Kalev and Ram are the same person. After all, there are many people in Tanakh that have more than one name. So maybe the person Ram mentioned at the end of Sefer Ruth is none other than Kalev himself. I mean, there's something very strange going on here. The Gemara says, Rashi says, that Miriam was rewarded, that David came from her. How? Because Miriam married Kalev, and Kalev, of course, is the son of Chetzron. And you look in the Psukim, he came from Ram, who's the son of Chetzron. So maybe Kalev and Ram are the same guy. But if you look in Divrei Hayamim, you'll see. Take a look at number 5. In Divrei Hayamim Aleph, Parak Beis, Halach Pasuk Tes, it says Chetzron had 3 children. Ubenei Chetzron, Asher Noilad Loi, Es Yerachmeel, V'es Ram, V'es Kluvai. Now who's Kluvai? Kluvai's got to be Kalev. We know Kalev is the son of Chetzron, so Kluvai's got to be Kalev. And then it says Chetzron had another son, Ram. So obviously Ram and Kalev are 2 different guys. So we have a tremendous problem here. On the one hand, the Gemara says that Miriam was rewarded, that David came from her through her union, the union of Miriam and Kalev. And on the other hand, it says at the end of Ruth that David HaMelech came from Ram. Now Ram and Kalev are brothers. And clearly David did not come from Kalev. David came from Kalev's brother, Ram. It's a major problem. So, for those of you who Hebrew is not their first language, for a special courtesy before Shavuos, we have an English Maramakim. That's what happens when you move to the 5 towns. English Maramakim. So, no, just joking. I did this in Queens also. Okay, take a look. Look at number 6. This is from Rabbi Yisrael Reisman's Sefer. pathways of the prophets. And he brings up this question that Yocheved and Miriam, take a look, risked their lives on behalf of the Jewish newborns in Mitzrayim, and Hashem rewarded them because they feared God. And Rashi explains that they were rewarded with houses of Kohanim, Leviim, which came from Yocheved, and David, which came from Miriam. And the Gemara says in Saita that David came from Miriam through Miriam's marriage to Kalev. Everybody knows this Chazal, but it seems to be impossible. How could you say David came from Kalev? David clearly came from Kalev's brother Ram. And Kalev and Ram are two different people, like we see in Divrei Hayam. So the Marsha, in Masechta Soita, and Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, the Marsha is bothered by this question. And the Marsha says, Ach Masha Amar de Kalev Haya Ish Miriam, to say that Kalev was Miriam's husband, Umehem Yatza David, and David came from Tzarchim, it's impossible, says the Marsha. Says the Marsha, this is impossible. And therefore the Marsha offers the following suggestion. Says the Marsha, Avada, David came from Yishai, who came from Oived, who came from Boaz, who came from Salmon, who came from Salmon's father Nachshon, who came from Aminadav, who came from Ram, who came from Chetzin. And nothing to do with Kalev. David did not come from Kalev mitzad ha'av. However, somebody in Kalev's family married somebody in Ram's family. In other words, one of the sons of Kalev, or one of the daughters of Kalev, more specifically one of the daughters of Kalev, daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, married one of the descendants of Ram, and therefore David HaMelech really, on the side, the patrilineal side, David came from Ram. But on the matrilineal side, on the mother's side, David HaMelech came from Kalev. So when the Gemara says David came from Miriam and Kalev, it means one of their daughters married into the family of Ram. That is the answer of the Marsha. But what we'd like to do tonight is perhaps offer another answer. Okay, Rabbi Say, we're going to discuss something, probably the most sensitive issue in Tanakh, certainly the most sensitive issue in Sefer Rus. And that is Naomi's advice to Rus. Naomi tells Rus the following. Take a look in number 8, in Rus, Paragimel, Pasuk Dalet. Naomi gives Rus the following advice. I want you to do me a favor. You're going to go to Boaz's field. You're going to sneak into the field. When Boaz retires for the evening in his goyren, in his silo, you're going to be hiding out there in the corner. After Boaz eats, after Boaz drinks, he's going to lie down. You're going to sneak up to him. You're going to uncover his legs. And he's going to tell you what to do. Mamish adavar pella. The pasuk says, "V'hi b'shachvai," when he goes to lie down. V'yadaris hamakom asher yishkav sham. You should know the place that you're lying down, that he's lying down. Uvas, you're going to come. V'gilis margeloisav v'shachaft. You're going to uncover his feet and lay down. V'hu yagid lach, and he'll tell you es asher ta'asen, what should be done. Mamish adavar pella. For Naomi Hatzadekes to give Ruth such a seemingly inappropriate advice. Here you have Boaz, he's the Gadol Hadar, he's the Shoifet, he's Avtzon. And Naomi's going to tell Ruth to do this seemingly highly inappropriate act of being Megala, the Raglayim of this Tzaddik of Boaz. What kind of Eitzah was this? What kind of advice was this? Well, we look at the end of Megillas Ruth, and of course Boaz marries Ruth, and Chazal tell us that after he lived with Ruth, he died. He didn't even make it through the evening. And that very night. And Ruth conceived Oived. And when this child, Oived, was born, everybody went and called out, and everybody said the following. Everyone said, Yulad bein Naomi. Naomi had a son. Now, it's very nice that people said that. Women say a lot of things. Not everything they say needs to be reported, not even in newspapers, certainly not in Megillas Ruth. Who cares what these ladies say? Naomi had a son. Naomi didn't have a son. Naomi's daughter-in-law, Ruth, had a son. Ruth had a child. Ruth and Boaz had a child. So the lady said Naomi had a son. Who cares? Why did they say that? Naomi didn't have a son. Naomi's an old lady. Why did they say Yulad bein Naomi? And even more surprising, you look at the end of the Megillah says Naomi nursed the child. Naomi nursed the child? Why do I need to know that? I would be very happy not knowing that. Why do I need to know Naomi was an oimenes to this child? What's the meaning of this? Parshas Vayeshev, we have the story of Er and Oinon. We know that Er and Oinon were Rabbi Inei Hashem, and Er died. Er was married to his wife, and he died without children. And Yehuda goes to his second son, and Yehuda says to Oinon, do me a favor, Boy el eshes achicha, live with the wife of your brother, v'yabei moisa, do yibum to her, v'hakim zera la'achicha, and establish children to your brother. In other words, Yehuda is commanding his other son Oinon to marry Er's wife. So Rashi wants to know, what does it mean, v'hakim zera la'achicha, give seed to your brother? So Rashi says like this, it means you're going to have a child, name your child after the deceased. So name your child Er. Name your child Er. So the Ramban doesn't like that. The Ramban says, name your child Er. That's not what v'hakim zera la'achicha means. Even in Parshas Kiseitze, after the Torah was given, when you have the mitzvah of yibum, the Torah says the same lashon, v'hakim zera la'achicha, and there's no mitzvah that when somebody does yibum and they have a child, to marry the child after the deceased. So why does Rashi feel in Parshas Vayeshev that it means to marry the child after the deceased? You look in Sefer Ruth. In Sefer Ruth, what happens? Boaz does yibum to Ruth, and Boaz does yibum, and they have a child. What's the child's name? Child's name is Oived. Child's name is not Machlon. So if there's a mitzvah to name the child after the deceased, we do not find such a thing. Not in Parshas Kiseitze, and not in Sefer Ruth. So the Ramban disagrees with Rashi, and the Ramban says the following: that there is a soid, there's a secret of yibum, and the Ramban does not identify what this secret is. The Ramban just says that it was known in ancient times that if somebody dies without children, that a relative needs to come along and marry the woman. There is something beneficial that accrues to the soul of the nifter if the relative marries. That was before the Torah was given. However, says Ramban, after the Torah was given, you can't marry your son's wife anymore, you can't marry your grandson's wife, you can't marry most relatives' wife. But the Rebbeinu Shalom at least preserved yibum for your brother's wife. But the Ramban does not say exactly what the secret of yibum is. So Rabbi Isai, our main offering for tonight, other than the food, which looks very appetizing, and maybe at 8:56 we should put an end to the food. I think it's people are getting very distracted. But the Malbim really reveals to us, the concept of yibum, the secret of yibum. What exactly is the mitzvah of yibum? Again, in English, yibum is the Levirite marriage. And we know, according to the Torah, if a man dies, chas Hashem, without children, then there's a mitzvah for the brother to either marry the deceased wife, and if he doesn't want to do that, the way he releases her from being bound to him is the following procedure. She removes his shoe, she spits in the shoe, and then he and her are free to marry whoever they want. That process is called chalitza. And it's a very unusual, very strange process. What kind of ritual is that? She removes his shoe and she spits in his shoe. What exactly is the concept of yibum? Why should somebody marry their brother's wife? What's the halacha? If somebody divorces their wife, if the brother would marry the wife, he'd be chayiv misa. The Bezdin would kill him, right? If you marry your brother's wife while he's still alive, Bezdin will kill you. And yet if the brother dies, not only is it not Navera, you're obligated to marry his wife. What's the concept of yibum? And what's the concept of releasing the bind? In other words, this man, a guy dies without children, she is connected to her husband's brother. She's obligated to marry her husband's brother. If she doesn't marry her husband's brother and marries somebody else, she's doing an Avera. Why is she connected to her husband's brother? When her husband was alive, if she would live with the brother, she'd be chayiv misa. And now that he dies, she's obligated to marry him. What's the concept? And what's the concept of removing the shoe? So let's introduce it with the following. If I were to ask you, And probably most people are not aware of this. If I were to ask, you're alive? Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, okay. You're breathing? Yeah. You have a soul? You have a neshama? Yeah, we all have a neshama. If I ask you, where's your neshama? I've asked this many times. People point to different places. Paul, where's your neshama? In your heart? In your brain? Neshama sheva moichi? The answer is none of the above. 99% of your neshama is not in your body. 99.9% of your neshama is upstairs. Your neshama is right now, not after Lachar Me'vasim Shana. I'm saying that this moment, today, this second, as we speak, your neshama is under the Kisei HaKavod. It trickles down from the Olam HaBriya, Olam HaYetzira, Olam HaAsiya. It trickles down into your body. So right now, what part of your neshama is in your body? The bottom, the lowest part of your neshama is in your body. Well, so what is the role of my body to my neshama? The analogy is your body is the shoe of the neshama. If I ask you, do you live in your shoe? There are people who are into shoes. Got it. But you don't, unless you're the old lady, you don't live in your shoe. Your head is not in your shoe. Your torso is not in the shoe. Your legs are not. It's just the foot. The foot is in the shoe. That means the shoe houses the lowest part of the body. By the same token, the body houses the lowest part of the neshama. Right now, sometimes a person feels worried. Doesn't know why. Nothing to worry about. Yeah, but sometimes your neshama senses something in Shamayim. And right now your neshama is in Shamayim. Sometimes you're not always conscious of it. Sometimes you don't even aware why you feel certain things. That's because the majority of the neshama, we say it every day in davening. We say in davening, V'al nishmoiseinu hapekudo islach, our souls that are deposited by you. It doesn't just mean in the nighttime. It means every moment of existence. The neshama is primarily in Shamayim. The neshama, only the lowest part of the neshama is in the guf. So the guf to the neshama is the shoe to the body. Got it? That is why every time somebody goes to a holy place, Hashem says, Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha. Remove your shoes. It's an analogy. It's a metaphor. It means strip yourself of your connection to your body. Your body is called a shoe. Your body is the shoe of the neshama. It houses the bottom part of the neshama. So when Moshe Rabbeinu comes to the burning bush, Hashem says, remove your shoe, meaning focus on your neshama. This is what Reb Chaim Volozhiner writes in the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Comes the Malbim. The Malbim says as follows. Says the Malbim in Sefer Ruth, Mamish Adavar Pella, that when a person comes down to this world, the neshama would like to produce a child. If the neshama doesn't, the neshama is at unrest. Unrest. And if the person dies without having a child, the neshama does not feel satisfied. And the neshama then goes into the woman, and the neshama is hakin a shainik in the woman. Does not give the woman peace. Does not give the woman respite. The neshama is hakin her. You didn't produce. So therefore, the neshama then, this neshama of the deceased is sort of floating around in this world without a guf, without a body. It needs a body to go into. When the brother goes ahead and marries the deceased wife, and they have a child, that child is not just named after the deceased, that child is the deceased, says the Malbim. This is what the Malbim quotes from all the Mekubalim. That the concept of mitzvah yibum is somebody left this world without a child, his neshama is at unrest until the brother comes along, marries the wife, they have a child, that child is the deceased. It's him. He's come back. He's found a body to go into. He's found, and the analogy is, he's found what? He has a shoe. A shoe is a remez, is a metaphor, is a symbolism of the body. So here you have somebody passed away without the child. The neshama is in turmoil. The neshama is, so to speak, tormented. Until the wife goes ahead and marries the brother, They have the child. The child then is the house, is the shu, is the body for the soul of the deceased. That's the concept of yibum. That is why, says the Malbim, as soon as Boaz and Ruth conceive a child, everybody says to Naomi, Naomi, this is your child. What do you mean Naomi's child? Not Naomi's child, it's Naomi's grandchild. No! This is Machloin. Machloin, take two. Machloin has come back to this world the second time. This is the child of Naomi, not the grandchild. This is Machloin, who he was in unrest in his first take on this world. He comes back, and he's now the child of Naomi. That's why Naomi is nursing. Naomi is nursing Machloin. This is Machloin again. That's the concept of yibum, says the Malbim. Says the Malbim, mamish adavar nefla. And what if a man does not want to do yibum? So what does he not want to give his brother? He's not giving his brother a shoe. He's not allowing his brother an opportunity for his brother's soul to be housed in a guf. He's not giving his brother a shoe. So the concept of chalitza is, she goes over to his shoe, and she says, if you're not going to marry me, you know what you're doing? You're not giving your brother a body. You're not giving him a shoe. She removes his shoe, and he's called a name. He's called the one who removed the shoe. V'kara shemai b'Yisrael beis chalutz hanal. We call his name the one who removed the shoe. That's the symbolism of chalitza. If the brother does not want to marry her, it's like he's not offering the tormented soul of his brother a physical house to remain in this world. Says the Malbim, that fateful night at midnight, Naomi tells Ruth, look, what are you going to ask him? You're going to go to him b'pem maleh and you're going to say, do me a favor, do yibum to me. It's not nice, it's not shame. You don't talk that way. Even us here, to talk about this topic, what can we do? Torah hi v'lo maranu tzarach. But otherwise, to talk about such things, we would never talk about these things, but it's part of the Torah. So Naomi tells Ruth, you can't go over to Boaz and say, Boaz, be meyabe me. So you're going to do it in a very edel way. You're going to be merames to him. While he's lying down, you know what you're going to do? You're going to uncover his legs. You're going to indicate to him, you know what, Boaz? Remember your long-lost relative, Machloin? You know what state he's in now? He has no shoe. His legs are uncovered. He has nothing for his soul to be housed in. In other words, instead of telling Boaz, b'pem mole, do yibum to me, this is a very delicate and refined way of alluding to him that you need to do yibum. You go to him, you uncover his feet. That's an indication you need to make sure you're not going to get that terrible label of Beis Cholot Hanal. You don't want to get the label of being someone who removed the shoe of his brother. That's the concept of what Naomi was advising Ruth. Do it to him, indicate it to him, allude it to him in a very delicate way. That's the concept of yibum. That's the concept of yibum. The concept being that the soul is in a storm. The soul has no physical vehicle to be housed in. And therefore, the indication is if he doesn't do the yibum, we take off his shoe and we say, Beis Chalot Hanal. Amazing thing. If you look in the beginning of the Megillah, right, we know Elimelech had two sons. What's their name? Machloin and Kilyon. Who's older? Doesn't say. Presumably, though, Machloin was older. Because it says Machloin, and then it says Kilyon. Okay, fine. And they married two women, Arpa and Ruth. Shem ha'achas Arpa, v'shem ha'shenis Ruth. The name of the first is Arpa, the name of the second was Ruth. I ask you a question. Who married who? Who married who? You have Machlin and Kilyon. You have Arpa and Ruth. Who married who?
Married Arpa.
What? L'chayra, if it says two names and two names, l'chayra, Machloin married Arpa, Kilyon married Ruth, right? I mean that's what it seems. But we know that's not true. You look at the end of the Megillah, it says that Ruth was Eishes Machloin. Ruth was Eishes Machloin. Look at number 16. You have V'shem Hoish Elimelech, V'shem Ishtoi Naomi, V'shem Shnei Vanav Machloin V'chilyon Ephrasim. Okay, Machlon and Kilyon. And they get married. Vayisu lahem nashim hayaviyos. Arpa and Ruth. So l'chayra, Machlon married Arpa, and Kilyon married Ruth. But at the end of the Megillah, it says, V'gam esrus hamoyaviyah, Eishes Machlon. Eishes Machlon. Ruth was Eishes Machlon. What's going on here? So if Ruth was Eishes Machlon, then the Megillah should have been clear in the beginning. It should have said Kilyon and Machlon. Kilyon married Arpa, and Machlon married Ruth. Let's see if you know the answer. Which Mefarish do I quote more than anybody else? Ramami Pano. I like Ramami Pano, but I don't know if I quote him more than anybody else. There's an Ivishitz. That's Purim time. What's Chida? Who said Chida? All right, give Zemi the cigar. Right? So Chida is my. I took when Rabbi Pinchas Friedman came, spoke in the shul on Sunday. So he came to my house after. So he's telling me he loves the Sarm of the Chida. So I showed him I have all the Sarm of the Chida. So I told, where does an Ashkenazi guy like me come to the Sarm of the Chida? So in 1945, after the Holocaust, so all the Yidden, they were in the DP camps, they had no Sfarim to learn. And my grandfather published the first Sfarim for the survivors. The first sefer he published for the survivors was the Chida. So I think I have his chus maybe because of that, to learn the Sfarim of the Chida. But anyway, who else do I like to quote after the Chida? You might get this one. Chasam Sofer. This is the first I ever saw. Chasam Sofer quotes the Chida. I never saw this before. Chasam Sofer quotes the Chida. An amazing thing. You read the beginning of the Megillah the way it's written. Machlon and Kilyon. Machlon married Arpa. Kilyon married Ruth. The end of the Megillah it says, Ruth was the wife of Machlon. You ready for the story? Says the Chida. Kilyon married Ruth. Kilyon died. Machlon did yibum to Ruth. And then Machlon died. So basically, Boaz is being miyabim Ruth. Ruth already knocked off 2 guys. Ruth already killed Kilyon first, and then she killed Kilyon first, and then she killed Machlon. What is she called in halacha? Katlanis. She's a katlanis. Now there's a machloikas. Could you marry a woman that killed 2 guys? There are those who say you're allowed to do yibum. You're allowed to do yibum because shomer mitzvah lo yeda davara. Shomer mitzvah lo yeda davara. But it says Chasam Sofer, but Machlon already did yibum and it didn't help him. So don't tell me Boaz is protected because he's doing yibum, because Machlon was also doing yibum. And she still killed him. Turns out, she knocked off 3 guys. She killed first Kilyon, then Machlon, then Boaz. Arpa married Machlon. Arpa married Machlon. Kilyon married Ruth. Kilyon died. And then Machlon had both of them. And then he died. That's something out of this world. Comes out that Ruth was the wife of both Machlon and Kilyon. He was married to both of them. Yeah, they were goyim. So they were goyim. Let's talk a little bit more about shoes, and then we'll wrap. Then we'll tie it up. Okay. In the end of Ruth, when Boaz formally acquires the field, the form of kinyan used was he removed his shoe, again with the shoe. Look in number 19 in Ruth Paragdal Pasuk Zayin. V'zois lefanim b'Yisrael alagula ve'alatmura lekayim kol davar shalaf ish naloi. Somebody would remove his shoe v'nasan l'rayeh and give it to his friend. The way they used to make kinyanim were, right? You're about to shake on a business deal. You're about to, somebody's about to sell, $1 billion real estate project. And instead of shaking on it, instead of paying for it, you remove the shoe. Hopefully you put in the odor eater pads before. And that was the way you made a kinyan. It's a davar pella. What kind of kinyan is that? Well, you make a kinyan by taking off your shoe? Another Malbim, Parshas Kiseife. The Malbim says that even though the Mikubalim, as we mentioned earlier in the Shiur, explained the significance of yibum, that the purpose of yibum is to give a physicality to the tormented soul of the deceased. But nevertheless, there is a logical element to yibum. And that is based on the Gemara and the Shu issue. And that is based on the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kuf Nun Beis. The Gemara says like this: if you ride on a horse, you're a king. If you ride on a donkey, you're a free man. And if you have a pair of shoes, you're a human being. In other words, what's the definition of a human being? If you got yourself a pair of shoes. How is shoes, why is that the hallmark of a human being? So if I were to ask you, what is the distinguishing quality of man over animal? So I probably would have said, man could talk. Says the Malbim, no. Birds could also talk. You have parrots that could talk. Oh, man has intelligence. Says the Malbim, many animals have intelligence. It's not the faculty of speech. It's not the ability to talk. It's not the ability to think. You know what is the distinguishing quality of man? Bechira chafshis, free choice. Animals could talk, animals could think, but they cannot choose. Anything an animal does is instinctual. They're pre-programmed. If an animal runs away, it's an instinct. If an animal comes close, it's an instinct. An animal cannot choose to do something against its nature. There is no animal that it could be trained, but it cannot choose. An animal has no choice. The hallmark feature of man is the ability to choose. That is why man wears shoes. You know why man wears shoes? To indicate that we're a step above the animal. So you take the animal, you skin it, and you put it on your feet, and you say, I'm here, animal's here, earth is here. I don't deserve to walk on the earth like an animal. An animal walks straight on the earth because an animal is only 1 degree above the earth. I am a degree above animals, therefore I take the animal, I go to the shoe store and I put the animal on the lowest part of my body, indicating my supremacy over animal. Something the world doesn't get. When a kid falls into the, into the zoo, loyal, right? Chas v'shem, to kill a gorilla to save a child. The world doesn't understand the supremacy of the human being. Human being has free choice. That's why we wear shoes. The concept of shoes it's a declaration of our ability to choose. Says the Malbim. Here you have a guy, his brother died. His brother died, he didn't have children. The Torah is giving him a mitzvah. Marry your brother's wife. Why wouldn't he do it? Tell me, why wouldn't a guy marry his brother's wife? After all, doesn't he know his brother is tormented? Doesn't he want to perpetuate his brother's legacy? Why would he not marry the wife? You know why? He doesn't like her. Her nose is too long. He doesn't like the way she looks. That's why. He doesn't want to. Say, pal, you have a mitzvah to do it. I don't care if you don't want to. He says, yeah, what do you mean you don't care? It's a free country. I don't want to do it.
Choice.
What do you mean you don't want to work on yourself and do something you don't want to do? Right? The kids say, I don't want to. I don't care whether you want to or you don't want to. This is not a free country. The Torah is giving you a mitzvah to do it. You don't like the way she looks? Tough luck. But the man is not able to exercise his free choice and overcome his natural tendencies. You know what he is? He's an animal. Take off your shoes. That's the concept of chalitza, says the Malbim. The concept of chalitza is if a person cannot overcome their natural tendencies, demonstrating that they're an animal. An animal, that's the concept of chalitza. We take off his shoe and we declare to him that, pal, you don't have any ability an animal doesn't have. You have no supremacy over an animal. You cannot overcome. You don't want to. There's a mitzvah. Do it anyway. I don't want to learn. When I come home at night at 8:30, I'm tired. I don't want to learn. Neither do cows. Cows also don't want to learn when they come home from work. At 8:30 at night, when a cow has finished the day, he doesn't want to learn. And he doesn't, because he doesn't want to. Of course you don't want to learn at 8:30. The mitzvah is to put on your shoes and demonstrate that you have the ability to choose to do something you don't want to do. That's what a human being is. Human being has the ability and capacity to overcome what they want. That's the concept of the shoe, according to the Malbim, not in the Kabbalistic world, but in the realm of Seichel. So in Rabbi Reisen's book, Rabbi Saul Reisen's book, he writes that he was preparing a shiur on Ruth, as good rabbis do in the days before Shavuos, and somebody gave him a copy of an ancient manuscript of Rav Vidal Hatzarfasi, and he answers the question, and the question was, we know David came from who? From Oved, from Yishai, from Ram, from Chetzroin, from Purest, but not from Kalev. Where does Kalev come in? The Gemara in Soita says David comes from Kalev. Says Rav Vidal Hatzarfasi, you got to think yibum. You got to think yibum. You know what happened? What happened was Kalev was married to Miriam. They didn't have any children. Kalev died. Ram married Miriam. Ram had Chetzroin. Ram had Aminadav. This Aminadav, who is he? On the one hand, he's the son of Ram. On the other hand, he's Kalev. So David did come from Kalev. Or you could say vice versa, that Aminadav was married to Miriam. Ram was married to Miriam. And Ram died without children. And Kalev was Miyabim Miriam. And they had Aminadav. And they had Aminadav. No, they had Aminadav. And this Aminadav was the child of who? Kalev, but also through the yibum process, also was the child of Ram. So thinking about it this way, it comes out that basically almost every step in the creation of David HaMelech was through yibum. Yehuda marrying Tamar, that was a form of yibum. Kalev and Ram, there was yibum. Boaz, and even before that, Machon is doing yibum to Kilion's wife. And according to Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, it comes out that Ram and Kalev also did yibum, and of course Boaz was meyabim Ruth. So it comes out there are 4 yavamim in the creation of David HaMelech. You have Yehuda and Tamar, you have Ram and Kalev, you have Machon and Kilyon, and you have Boaz and Ruth. Interesting that Malchus Yisrael was created dafka through the process of yibum. But according to the Malbim, perhaps the explanation is yibum is really the most altruistic gift that a person could give anybody. Here the person died without children, and basically the brother is giving up any credit for the child. The child is not the brother's child. The child is the deceased. And the person is basically giving up their own identity to perpetuate the memory of their brother. And this brings about the great Yeshua for Klal Yisrael of Malchus Beis David. And the Malbim says that is why the Megillah ends off that everybody tells Naomi, V'haya lecha l'meishiv nafesh. This will restore your soul. Simply put, it's going to make you feel better. But says the Malbim, these words are very literal. It's going to restore the soul. You know whose soul? This is going to restore the soul of Machon. The soul of the tormented Machon came back again to this world in the guise of Oved. And everybody said about Oved, you're the son of Naomi. In fact, Naomi nurses him, and this brought about Malchus Beis David. We should be Zoicha ben David. Yavai v'galeinu b'mher v'yameinu. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.